Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. Welcome to the City of Peekskill. We're here tonight to talk about the reconstruction of Oakwood Drive. So thank you all for coming. I'm Mike Haggerty, a program administrator for community development with the City of Peekskill. We also have here in attendance from the city, the Superintendent of Water and Sewer, Dave Rambo. Thanks for coming, Dave. So thank you all for coming. This is a transportation and pedestrian improvement project that truly begins at the ground level. This is just one example of the city utilizing federal grant funding to implement infrastructure improvements for you, the citizens of Peekskill. We will explain to you tonight some of the design plans and budgetary parameters that we are working with. But most importantly, we do want to hear from you, the public, as we seek to finalize these design plans and look towards construction of this significant infrastructure investment in the city of Peekskill. So I'd like to introduce to you our project consultants who will be taking you through the process of how we are obtaining a grant from the federal government to fund this project and the whole process involved with getting approval for the design of the project and moving towards construction. So with us tonight is Mark Lukasik of Tectonic Engineering. Mark is the lead project engineer with us with Tectonic, who is doing the design. And we also have with Tectonic, Lou Greco is here. Lou is there in the audience. And we have now with Behan Planning, Michael Allen. So without further ado, here is Michael. Thank you, everyone.
Hello. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. As Michael mentioned, this is about Oakwood Drive. And as you all know, various parts of Oakwood Drive are in various parts of disrepair. The sidewalk, especially up and down the street, is in serious disrepair. And this is a major travel thoroughfare for anybody walking up or down the hill, especially down to the shopping plaza or to the bus stop. As well as the road is in some disrepair. And there's also some elements which you can't see on a normal day-to-day basis, and that's the underground utilities. We have water, sewer, and storm lines under there you can't even see. The water line itself is over 100 years old, and so we have a lot to fix here. Thankfully, with the help of a federal grant, we have the opportunity to address some of these issues. And so the folks at Tectonic have been working on some design plans to try and address these issues. Our goals for this project overall are to replace the existing sidewalk, also to repave the road as much as possible up the hill, full depth reconstruction. As part of that, and taking the opportunity of this, is also to replace or repair many of these utilities underground. Mark will take you through the details of all of that going forward. But overall, this is a long process because we're involving federal money, which is being passed through the state DOT. And so if some of you may have heard about this project starting up some time ago, you might be wondering, this takes a long time. This is a long process, so we apologize for that, but we're getting through it. And this design right now, we're at a point right now where it sort of pencils down. And we've brought the design to as far as we can at this point, but what we need now is for community input. And so the purpose of tonight's meeting is to show you where we are, explain to you some of the design decisions that we've made, what are some of the challenges or constraints in the decisions that we made, and to get some input from you guys on things you'd like to see changed, or do we have some wiggle room and so forth. And so that is the overall goal tonight. We do have, as many of you probably already grabbed, some handouts. If you notice in the back of those handouts, there's a comment form. So if you get home later tonight and you think of something else that you wanted to say tonight, we're still leaving it open for comments for another week, I think until like the 29th. So feel free to email Michael or to submit one of these forms if you have any comments, or if you speak to one of your neighbors and they have an idea, please. So what we're going to do, I'm going to hand this over to Mark in just a second to go through all the details. He's going to take us through that, and then we're going to have just an open Q&A session, answer any questions, take suggestions, and have an opportunity for everyone to go around and look at the boards. We have a full set of plans here to look at, and we'll just keep it sort of informal, and with that, I hand it over to Mark. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Okay. So what I'll do is I'm just going to walk you through the basic elements that comprise this project, and that way you can have a general understanding of what is going to be accomplished. And then I'll finish that with essentially how we will accomplish it and what it would be like on your day-to-day routine through the footprint of this project. If you live along the alignment, if you pass through the alignment, you'll be able to get a sense of how this might function and how you might be affected while living here during the course of construction. The project itself is very straightforward. We have a road which is in disrepair, and we're going to rebuild it. This process is going to start by essentially removing the asphalt surface in various places so we can get our utilities. We're going to work from the bottom up. The road, I don't think I have to get that much into the mechanics of the pavement and whatnot. It's pretty straightforward. It's going to come back in a fashion with the same widths, the same surface type, except new and well constructed and stable, and probably good for something on the order of about 20 years before it has to be essentially fully rebuilt again. The parts of the road that are meaningful and I think obvious and part of what you see on a regular basis is really at the intersections. Those are the places where you come to a stop, you look around, you need to make a decision, left, right, straight through, etc. And in that fashion, we have not generally made any dramatic changes to what you see out there. We've really refined things. The islands at the bottom are still there. The reason they are there is because this road is extremely steep and North Division is extremely flat. And we have to get you from one to the other, and we have to do it with your car not bottoming out in that process. And so as a result, we're going to leave those features there. There might be some improvements that you can suggest just from having to turn left or right or come in and out at certain times of the day. We'd love to hear those things from you. But generally speaking, the shapes of the islands will be tweaked. You'll find it easier and more natural to flow into those turns than you might see today out there. The pedestrian piece of it is another meaningful element on this project. You have a sidewalk out there now, which is obviously falling apart. The concrete has failed. It's been salted in the wintertime to keep everybody from slipping because it is so steep, and those materials will damage and destroy the concrete over time. So we're going to replace it all new, and we're going to make sure that the minimum width of 4 feet is provided. Certain places it'll be 5 feet or more. Where you have to go around utility poles that are out there now, you'll be able to move past them with sufficient widths. When you need to cross the roadways, you'll be sent to accessible ramps where you'll have what's called tactile warning, basically a little strip of bumps, which will tell you you're either on the sidewalk or you're in the street. Those types of features, a modern pedestrian environment will be created along the sidewalk where it is today. The one difference that you will see is today the sidewalk peters out before it reaches the driveways, about halfway up the hill, about 700 feet. That sidewalk would extend to the nearest driveway to provide a meaningful discharge point where you would walk from the sidewalk to the driveway and enter the street to continue your pedestrian journey up and down the roadway. The sidewalk footprint is slightly longer than it was in there today, but it is, to be clear, not from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill. The nuts and bolts underground, what delivers water for your use in the homes, sanitary lines to take the wastewater away, storm drains to take the rain runoff safely off the surface and discharge it into the city storm drain system. Those will all be either rehabilitated or replaced. The water line is to be, after 100 years, it's done its job, it's time for a new one. We'll put in a modern sanitary potable water system deep down. That'll happen first. Your sanitary system is old, but it's in generally good shape. If funds allow, the plan is to use that piping as a shape and as a form, and we'll insert a PVC liner plastic liner inside, and we'll expand that and basically give that pipe an additional service life moving forward, so that you don't have breaks or collapses or other potholes in the roadway that reflect all the way up to the surface. The storm pipes have, again, also served their purpose. Their time has come to be replaced as well. They'll be replaced with a plastic piping that has a service life longer than the road itself. Finally, just the drainage structures where the water goes off the surface into the pipes below will be generally replaced and or repaired as warranted, and again, as funds allow. It's important to note that there is not just one solution here. We did look at quite 4 different alternatives, largely focused on how we can accomplish the utility repair on this project. There are different ways we can use existing water lines, we can build new water lines, we can temporarily bypass sewer lines. There are permutations there that were looked at, and the current concept that we think is the most cost-effective and the least disturbing to everyone is to build a new water line while you're still drinking from the existing water line, and then quickly switch everything over for minimal disruption to the residents along the route. From a sanitary perspective, if we do wind up doing work on some of those mains, we would temporarily plug them and use a bypass pump to move from one location to another. Basically take any wastewater that is in those pipes and move it around the work zone so that they can accomplish a bit of work in the middle. The sequencing, the road will remain open during the course of construction. There are no detours planned. We're not looking to send you off in a crazy direction and add 5 minutes to your commute or getting in and out of the home. What you will have, most likely, are flagmen out there with a stop slow paddle, just telling you safe to pass. You'll alternate traffic through the work zone. You will most likely face parking restrictions on street, where for a period of time where the work is going on, you'll be parking in driveways or out of the way on side streets, but not along through the work zone, not on Oakwood Drive when it is under construction. The sanitary work, again, is done in what is called a trenchless technology, so a lot of those deep excavations are not expected to occur. The deepest excavations that are planned are in the 5 to 6 foot range along this roadway. And finally, the duration of this. This is a process that, for active construction, is probably a 3-month process for all the work to be completed. The contract period, the time that the city has a contractor on this project, will be longer. The time that it takes for grass to grow at the end, the time that it takes for things to really get ramped up and moving at the beginning, those are on either side of it. But to you, the residents, those who are familiar with it, you're looking at a period of time where you can expect about 3 months of activity in front of you. So with that, I think we have covered the technical piece of it. I would like to touch briefly on the financial side of things. This is an $899,000 grant that has been offered to the city. It has a federal source of money. It is a maximum amount. There is no more that will be offered by the state or federal government above that amount. What happens from there is the city must participate with at least 20% of that number added on top of it, contributing to this project. The Common Council then has to decide which elements do they want to spend money on. This is a process that will take place during the course of 2019 into 2020. The range that we are looking at is starting at the low end, $1.2 million, so essentially the city kicking in at least $300,000. And if everything were to be selected, it could get upwards to $1.6 million. So those are the choices that are going to be left to the Common Council to ultimately decide as an investment and participation in this project. The construction time is envisioned to be into the spring and summer of 2020. So that's the period of time that you're looking at between now, where we're sitting here, right at the start of spring of 2019, and kind of alluding back to Michael's point that this is a long process. We're in step 3 out of 7 steps. Well, 8 steps if you count construction. So we're not even halfway. But this is the point here where we really do want to hear from you, the people that live here, the members of the public, those who know this very well. Please raise your hand, speak one-on-one to us in front. Let us know what it is that you have, questions, comments, additions. It can only help. It can only help. Thank you. Anyone have anything they want to ask, offer in this point? Yes, sir. One second. If we could have the microphone on. That way we can keep a...
My name is Frank Pugliese. I live up on Buena Vista Avenue. You were talking about that project should last about 20 years, the roadway, and then they're going to replace it again. That doesn't sound right. You'd think that with what we're doing, it's going to last a heck of a lot more than 20 years. And also, in 2016, we were told next year. And in 2017, we were told next year. And in 2018, I got the emails, next year. Now this is next year. And now it's going to begin in 2020. And there's no mention of Buena Vista Avenue. This is what we're concerned about, because that's a disaster up there. You get a FedEx truck or a UPS truck come through, it sounds like a 10-wheeler. That road hasn't been done. I've been there since my family bought that house in 1961. And I moved there in 1992 when I bought the house. Carol over here, she's been there before me. That road hasn't been paved. And all we keep hearing is, yeah, we're working on it. Excuse me. We got Con Ed funds. Con Ed gave us $1 million. Well, where's that money going to? You're taking... You go up that hill in the wintertime and make that turn onto Buena Vista Avenue, you're taking your life in your hands, because it's not good. And now that's another thing, we got the world's largest hockey rink, because there's a drainage that comes down from Hampton Oaks, and there's water draining onto the street. The city's been up there constantly, all winter long, putting salt and sand up there. It's one big sheet of ice. What are they going to do with that? They're going to fix anything up?
Thank you. We'll bring that up. You have a question?
I just want to say that I'm one of the original owners. I've been in my house since 1959, and our street, Buena Vista, has been repaved only once. And if you take a ride up there right tonight, you can see the road is all cracking. Con Edison has repaved every road in Peekskill where they've replaced the gas lines. We were promised in 2016 that they were going to repave our road after installing all these new gas lines, and it hasn't been done, and we haven't heard anything about any anticipation of our street. So that's why we're here.
Okay.
Just one quick question on this Oakwood Drive. Are they going to have speed bumps?
Okay, so let me give you a couple answers before I build up too much of a backlog here. I want to keep this a nice dialogue and give us an opportunity to give you as many answers and take whatever feedback we can now and give you as many answers as we can now and incorporate what we can into the project as well. So, 20 years. 20 years is a design life. It's pretty much a standard for road construction. And what that means is we're going to work from essentially nothing. We're going to take everything that's in here now and rip it out and remove it in the upper 2 feet, call it depth-wise. So once we rebuild all of that, it's good for 20 years for that foundation. It can be resurfaced on the top. Just mill off a thin couple inches, put back another thin. It shouldn't need it in that 20-year period, but for whatever reason, a bunch of heavy trucks hit it, it might in that scenario. But at the end of the 20, it shouldn't need to be completely reconstructed again. It might need some spot work in various places, and then a new clean coat on the surface at the completion of that. But the 20 years is the whole layer cake. After it's replaced, you should expect that to be worth that investment for that period of time. No, no. No, but at the same time, you know, as taxpayers within the city, you want to see the money thrown after something good. You don't want to repair something and 2 years later scratch your head, why is it falling completely apart? That's not the goal. As far as the timing, next year, here tonight, next year, I hear you, absolutely. There's a couple factors here. One, the money, the $900,000 isn't here next year. So it's got to happen now. Otherwise, the city doesn't have $900,000 at its disposal. So there is definitely, you know, a coordinated effort to make sure that we get it done, because it's for everybody's benefit to have that money in here. As every taxpayer in the room, this project, you know, to be done independently would be a real challenge without the support behind the project. So that piece of it, everybody's motives are aligned. Everybody wants to see this go forward. The process is what it is. It takes time for the review. When you use federal money, everything is more expensive because it has 8 more steps of review, and it's not enough to just put rock on it. It has to be certified rock underneath, and everything has a cost and a procedure to it. But at the end of the day, the net result to the residents of the city is a efficient, better product that will last longer and will function better than anything that would have come out otherwise. So it's a benefit to all. As far as Buena Vista goes, and I'm sure there are other streets throughout the city, you know, the city is in the process of putting together a paving plan and a program that prioritizes. It's great to have that feedback now, to hear from you, the residents, on what you want to see. That can be taken back to the DPW side of things, where they can input that into, and I'm sure they understand the condition of it as well. But the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? You know, if you don't say something, you know, you're relying on somebody to catch it. If you speak up, then your voice can be heard, and that can be registered and taken into account. Steepness on the turn into Buena Vista off of Oakwood, certainly agree. It is extremely steep. They're flipped on the backside of the boards. We have the profiles to prove it all. You're absolutely right. It's a steep road. It just keeps climbing as you go on to Buena Vista. We are at all of the maximum grades that we possibly can. We cannot slacken them without taking down everybody's front yard and every road out there. And so as a result, what we can do is we can manage how the road tilts from side to side. And what we have sought to do with the alignment here is to take a lot of those steep cross slopes, the crown of the roadway, which you can see in the middle representation here. It's labeled as a typical section. We've brought and flattened that so it is not quite as severe as you're riding along the roadway. If you can picture yourself in your car behind the wheel, in some places on that roadway, you definitely feel like you are sliding across from one side of the car, from the driver's seat toward the passenger seat, as you're moving down the roadway. And we're going to bring that out more level, which goes a long way toward helping when you have that uncertain feeling in a slick condition. You feel more stable when your car is closer to level. As far as stormwater discharges, thank you very much for the heads up on the fact that you have a tremendous amount of water dumping on the surface from the top of the hill to it. We'll make sure that we account for that in an appropriate size when we select the sizes of the pipes that are convey the water underneath. A lot of times we'll see things on the surveys, but you know, the surveys only capture 50-foot width centered on the roadway. They don't get things off to the sides. So this is where just local knowledge is fantastic to know. we have a problem spot in this area. It'd be great if you can point out just where you see it later on when we go switch over to an open house configuration. It would be useful to hear that, and then we can pinpoint a location to capture it and get it inside. Speed bumps? Nope, not planned. Not humps, not bumps, none of those. It would be a uniform paved surface, much like you have now. And appreciate the input on the last time that you can recall Buena Vista being paved. Though you mentioned, I think once you said Buena Vista, you recall it being repaved. Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Sure.
I think you've dealt with the drainage one. I would request that you not replace the drainage pipes in kind, but you resize them. During flash floods, they're unable to carry the volume of water that's coming down. And the houses on the north side are vulnerable. They'll spill over the lip and
Yes.
cause damage. So
Yes.
if you look at that. Second comment, there's a utility pole at the very bottom that hurts the sight lines when you're trying to pull into the traffic. It's very difficult to move into that North Division Street, particularly in the morning. It's just solid traffic, and the sight lines are blocked by a utility pole. If you take a look at that, I don't know if I can do anything with it. So I know it's hard to get these guys to move poles, but it's a problem. I got a question. Was the gas line fully replaced in the street already?
Yes, it was.
It was, okay, so that's out of the way. How are you handling the sanitary laterals?
So the sanitary laterals, so the relining process essentially works where a flexible material is placed into the pipe and is expanded against the walls of the pipe. And they insert some chemicals, apply some heat, and you now have a plastic pipe inside. However, in doing that, you then block the laterals, the connection to your house in that process. You have to go back, cut it in a second time. So the process at the moment will be to look at the main only and keep the lateral itself in service as it is now. We do have television cameras in this process to look up and down and identify whether there are any issues that would be in the immediate vicinity of the connection underneath the roadway.
Issue right to the property line.
Correct. So once it's behind the property line, at that point,
it's my problem.
not the
Yeah.
not the goal of the project.
Yeah.
But it would be below the pavement and within the main. Camera for inspection, line to replace any failures.
Yeah. My next comment or question is, who would I reference my objection to the sidewalk issue to be properly answered? Who should I'll write a letter to that effect. We've spoken about it, that the sidewalk is only halfway up the street, and there's kids of 7, 6, 5, probably as young as 5, walk that street every day at a high hazard risk. Because as the gentleman pointed out, that's a racetrack, that road. Okay. After they leave the speed bumps on Hampton Oak, the kids just crank it up. They're doing 70, 80 mile an hour down that street. That's why the man was asking about speed bumps. I know you don't want them. I don't want speed bumps. But the hazard for these kids is high. Okay. And I'm concerned about it. And I would like to write a letter to that effect, even though it will impact me negatively, because there's no place for the sidewalk in the design, and the way the road was originally designed. So it is an issue, I know. It's not an easy fix. But I would like to have it considered, and who should I address my letter to?
Sure. So just so that everybody's on the same page, the question is essentially, why stop the sidewalk halfway up the street? And why not bring it another 8 homes? To the top, or some other point. Why stop where it is? So the first answer is the way that a project is constructed in a federal funding process is the initial footprint is defined and written up, and a scope of work is proposed. And in this particular instance, this project proposed to replace an existing sidewalk. That means that that's your starting point, and that's where the project begins and how you come to this process, step 3 out of 8 here, where we're pointing out what has been brought forward to this point. Now we have a question, why can't we extend that further? Well, this is the time to put that forward. This is the time to have that added to that thick document sitting there on the side. If anybody wants to read, you're welcome to it. And discuss whether it makes sense, how it could be done, what the barriers to that might be, and can it be feasibly added to this project and executed in the timeframes that we have. I don't know that answer now. I can't answer it now. But if you have that concern, please put it forward, because this is the opportunity to get that in there and get it looked at and get it answered, because it will be answered. So that letter would be addressed to the city.
To the city?
Michael will be the recipient
okay.
Of that information. It will find its way into the appendix of this document. It will find its way to Region 8 for consideration. It will find its way to our desk to answer.
Okay.
As part of that document as well, and we will have to think about it, and we will have to consider it. And that's the way this process should work.
That's good. Thank you.
Those sidewalks really only went that far because there were no homes there
Right.
when the sidewalks were put in initially.
Yeah, but
You're-
somebody got approval for those houses without sidewalks, there had to be somebody paid off to make that happen.
We have no sidewalks on Buena Vista.
You should have them there too. How did the city approve that? That's what I support.
I don't know, I don't think we wanted sidewalks. I don't know if we had a choice, obviously we didn't, but I don't think we really found them necessary, because we were a dead-end street until the last, what?
2000, the year 2000, I think,
It's
before
the
they,
year
before they
2000.
opened the
Then they
road up, it
opened
was
the
dead
end
end.
of our street. It was all woods back there until that new project went in down there.
That makes sense for you, but on Oakwood Drive, you've got hundreds
I
of
know,
people live
I
up there
know
that
it,
walk down.
I know it. And that's what they wanted to put at the end of our street, but we fought that because they wanted to change the zoning from one family and put in garden apartments like they did at Hampton Oaks, and we were here every month when they had a meeting fighting that. So we won that, but no, we don't have sidewalks.
Any other questions at this point? All right. Well, I thank everyone for hearing what we had to introduce on a high level here for this project. At this point, we invite everyone to come up, look at the plans that we have arrayed out for you. You do have handouts with you which have some basic facts about this project. They have a couple of reduced scale versions, little pictures there for you to take with you. You're welcome to take those. Gives you a basic outline of what you've got, a couple facts that you can take away here. You don't have to remember everything. If you do have those, any comments, anything you want to offer, if you want to write your own letter, you're welcome to do that. If you want to just handwrite some comments, please do. But otherwise, we are available here to answer your questions one-on-one. If you just want to discuss, you want to look over, what does this mean? What is this line? What is this symbol? What are you doing? Any question that you don't want to ask before everyone else, but just want to ask one-on-one, we're happy to answer them. We're here this evening to satisfy your curiosity and have you provide whatever feedback you're comfortable providing, but thank you, most of all, for appearing.
When do you actually anticipate starting?
Right now, April 2020.
April 2020. So we have to live another year under these conditions. With that patchwork road, the Oakwood Drive and Harbor.
Yes. The city is obviously aware and has gone to great lengths to find the money to execute a project that is not inexpensive. No matter which way it is, to get you a new road and to repair as much of this infrastructure as possible here. It is, $1.2 million is not peanuts. It's a significant amount of money, and this grant program makes that a viable solution here to the city to upgrade this facility and get it back to what you would expect a neighborhood street to be, not this pothole navigating challenge that is out there now.
Do we on Buena Vista have to take our mail elsewhere? You folks aren't going to handle it. Is that right? Do we have to take that up with the city itself?
So this project cannot expand its footprint beyond the bottom of Oakwood to the top of the road.
Right.
And that is a function of the funds and the federal footprint that was outlined. This was specifically said, this will be Oakwood Drive. So the city can't choose to say, you know what, forget it, Oakwood's fine, let's do Buena Vista instead. That cannot happen with this. It's Oakwood, however we can afford to accomplish Oakwood, or nothing in that, and that's fine. Everything needs it, yes, but the city does have its own process for understanding where the roads need to be done, when they need to be done, and prioritizing that work, and doing that over a period of time as well. It's all the same numbers. The roads aren't any different anywhere else. It's 20 years, and you go around again. So, the city does have to distribute its fund and keep investing in that infrastructure to keep that in a serviceable condition. Yeah.
Note/question there to the gentleman who. Oh, right. Quick, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt things that much. Your question about is it potentially possible to include sidewalks farther up the street? I just wanted to clarify with you. I don't believe that if that could be added, that wouldn't necessitate a change in the footprint of the approved federal scope, right? That could be done within the same footprint, or?
It can be done within the footprint because the footprint extends.
Okay.
The footprint for the project extends from North Division to the end of the public portion of Oakwood Drive, which is the beginning of the Hampton Oaks private roadway, which twists up the hill an additional 600-700 feet before it actually reaches the apartments. So essentially when you get past the newer homes on the north side of the city street, that's where the project footprint ends. So one of the considerations is always right-of-way. And this project has the timing and the framework to work within the public right-of-way. Please do. Please do. This project right now envisions working entirely within the public right-of-way. Sure.
I'm sorry. So exactly what type of work are they going to be doing on that road?
Sure. I'm just going to work straight from the bottom up. We're going to replace your water mains underground. We're going to reline sections of the sanitary sewer. We're going to replace the storm piping, the drainage piping. We're going to repair or replace the catch basins themselves. We will replace the foundation of the roadway. We will replace all the blacktop for the roadway. And we will improve the intersection with the North Division. So the islands remain there. They just become a more favorable geometry and orientation. And the sidewalks become conforming, modern, pedestrian-friendly sidewalks, accessible routes provided at the intersections and at the termination points where you go from the sidewalk to the street.
This project is going to work, is going to last?
Sure. It'll take about 3 months for active construction, and it would start, the contract right now is envisioned to start in April of 2020, which means that active construction is probably in that scenario about May, by the time the contractor actually gets out there to work. It'll work for about 3 months, and then they'll clean things up at the end, wrap up their paperwork with the city, wait for grass to grow, make sure everything is functional and satisfactory.
While you're doing this, so
When the water system is, essentially what we'll do is we'll put in a new water main. You'll continue to drink from the old water main, and in a series of coordinated cutovers, we will have brief periods of time when the services are switched from one side to the other. It's done at off-peak times. It's done in the contractors typically coordinate. You get notices from the city and the contractor. Here are the days we're going to do this. You have ample notice. This isn't something like we're about to do this in an hour. You know, who's taking a shower? That's not the level of coordination. It's more organized and planned out than that. And it's done at times to minimize disruption. It's not happening at dinner. It's not happening at breakfast, that sort of thing. And it's short. Sure.
When the construction start, what's the time frame when these streets are going to be, when they're going to be working on the streets? Because if I have to, leave for work, what time frame are we talking about?
That can be coordinated and refined with the city. So if you have, a particular familiarity with the street and you know that, boy, once the school buses are gone, if this happens to be during the school time of year, then things are a lot better. That's probably a preferable time. It's customary that the construction in a residential area, you get moving around 8:30, 9 o'clock, and really be trying to wind up and clean up, in concert with when you have, those generators are in conflict. The school kids come home, that sort of thing. You want to be winding it down. It may not be gone, but you're cleaning things up and getting out of everybody's way. It depends. But it's something that is figured out, made part of the contract documents in a way that is least obstructing to your regular daytime activity.
The vegetation in front of the shopping center, on the other side of the fence, the roots from that vegetation is what has wiped out the existing sidewalk. It'll wipe out the brand new one too. So you need to think about that.
Thank you. Okay. At this point, feel free to come on up, take a look at the various documents, and ask any additional questions. Thank you all.